I go by Andrew Costa Mesa on Facebook, and I'm going to discuss with you how I got into a.s.m.r. Basically, it starts with my history of being interested in sound, especially stereo, which began many years ago. And I'll tell you how my love for stereo eventually led to me to get into a.s.m.r. It started in 1977 when I went to see Star Wars. Before Star Wars came out, every movie that I saw was on a mono sound system, or sometimes I would see movies in dollar movie theaters that used antiquated projections in which the sound was less than stellar. I accepted it as that's the way movies sound through film projectors. Then when I saw Star Wars, there was something very different about this movie. The sound system of this movie was very loud, but it was also very clear. There was no noise in the sound. I later learned that the system was called Dolby Stereo. And so I've learned that movies that are shown in Dolby Stereo have a very clear and crisp, noise-free sound. And that's when I took an interest in stereo. In 1979, the movie Star Trek the Motion Picture was the first movie feature film to be made from the Star Trek TV series. In 1981, I was at an electronics store at a shopping mall in Honolulu, and I came across a TV set that was playing a laser disc of Star Trek the Motion Picture. And I noticed that the laser disc was attached to a stereo system in which the movie was being shown on the TV with stereo sound, very similar to the sound system that was used in movie theaters. Well, maybe not as big as the ones in the movie theaters, but close enough. And I thought that was great. And I wished that I had a sound system like that at my home. In 1982, I saw my first advertisements for MTV Music Television, back in the day when MTV used to play music videos 24 hours a day. What caught my eye from this ad was that MTV was advertised as in stereo, meaning that you get to watch this in stereo. Now I'm thinking, how can you watch MTV in stereo through an ordinary TV set? Well, I learned that some cable systems across the country that carried MTV offered an optional subscription service where you can get or for a monthly fee, you'd get a stereo system hooked up to your TV set, and that you could watch the music videos on MTV through your stereo system. In 1984, I was at a store in New York that had a TV set that was attached to a stereo system, and MTV was on the TV, and I watched the first music videos there in stereo. Unfortunately, my local cable system in New York at that time did not offer a stereo hookup, so I was forced to watch MTV at my home in mono with an ordinary TV set. Also in 1984, the Los Angeles Olympics took place. I heard news reports that ABC, the television network that was going to broadcast the Los Angeles Olympics, considered showing the opening ceremonies in stereo. Had they done so, this would have been the first documented case of a TV network broadcasting an event in stereo on television. As far as I know, that did not happen. In 1985, my parents purchased a Fisher stereo system, which consisted of a stereo record player, a receiver, a radio, a tape player, and a CD player. Before we got this, we had an ordinary record player that played vinyl records. The sound was okay, but not great. Then we got the stereo system in 1985. I played the same records on this new record player in the stereo system, and the sound was just excellent. I was actually listening to my favorite music in stereo for the first time at home with this new stereo system. From 1985 until 1989, I noticed that there was an increase in television programs on network TV and in some cases on local stations, that where a TV program started, there would be a caption at the bottom of the screen where it would say, "In stereo, where available." And that's when I learned that many networks were, TV networks in the United States, were showing primetime television programs in stereo. To receive it in stereo, you had to get a stereo TV. I did not have a stereo TV at the time when I first saw these notices. In 1989, I had a horrific experience when my apartment was broken into and burglarized. Among the things I lost to the burglars was my standard color TV and my standard VCR. However, as horrific as the burglary was, some good came out of it. My parents offered to help me out by buying me a new TV and a new VCR. So I went shopping and I noticed that the state-of-the-art TV that they had in 1989 was a stereo TV and a hi-fi stereo VCR. I got those, and I remember one of the first programs I watched on my new stereo TV was the movie Colors with Sean Penn and Robert Duvall on Showtime. And I noticed that there was a real stereo sound coming from the TV. This is my first experience of having stereo TV at home. Flash forward 14 years into 2003, I was taking film classes, and among the film classes I took were editing classes. The first editing class I took was Final Cut Pro. One of my assignments was to align video with the soundtrack or audio track. Like, for instance, I was given a task of queuing up to a portion of the video where an underwater light would turn on, and on the audio track there would be the sound of something that sounded like a camera shutter going off. And my job was to align the sound of the camera shutter going off with the light turning on the video. And it was also in stereo. In the editing room, instead of listening to the audio through the TV, I had to wear earphones, which was even better because I felt that I got the full sound experience using earphones by listening to the stereo sound of the camera shutter going off while the light on the video was going on at the same time. I thought it was neat. In 2005, I shot my first short movie that contained audio. I used an old-fashioned mono Nagra for the audio to pick up sound and to pick up dialogue, and I edited that on another editing system called Avid Media Composer, and the picture that you see here was shot on 16mm film, and basically my job was to align the movie that I was editing with the audio that was recorded on the Nagra tape deck, and I'll play you a portion of the movie that I shot.
Where is he? I don't know. We're supposed to be eating Black Angus. He's so getting dumped over this. Speak of the devil. So, where's our Black Angus?
Well, I went to the band.
Who's band?
Coach's band.
Okay, and?
And I was a knocking, it was a ride.
Yeah, right. What do you mean?
Kid you not, Coach and Miss Winters.
Did you take a good look at it?
Of course.
Oh, God. The 90-year-old mystery teacher?
It was.
Oh, that's sick.
But anyway, Coach is gonna make it up to us.
How? When?
Tonight. He's gonna take us out to the Red Lobster.
All right. You promise?
Baby, you're gonna get the biggest lobster tail on the menu.
I'm sure you will.
So that was a portion of the short movie that I shot, and the first one that had dialogue. In 2006, I took my first sound class at the film school, and the application that I was learning to use was a sound editing, in which I would edit sound and which would enhance the movie watching experience. And one of my job was to align sounds from various audio sources and put them together and make it sound like as if they were all actually occurring in that place, except that they were coming from a few different audio sources that were unrelated to each other. And I also thought this was a very neat class to take. Also, in 2006, I had the misfortune to have a new neighbor move in next door to me, and he was really noisy. He used to have noisy all-night parties at his house every Friday and Saturday night. Someone suggested to me that I should get some sort of stereo system and listen to calming sounds when I sleep, and that would drown out the noise that's coming from outside my window. I guess you can say in 2006 that was sort of like my first introduction to a.s.m.r. or something like it, except that it wasn't called a.s.m.r. at the time. Anyway, that was my first introduction to it. In 2008, I got my first high-definition television. The sound coming from the TV by itself is not the best, but it was a lot better than listening to the sound from my old stereo TV. It was somewhat of an improvement. And finally, in 2012, as I was looking at YouTube videos, I noticed that there were some videos coming up under the recommended for you section, and in the recommended for you section were videos coming from a very attractive and pretty young lady who I would find out would go by the name of Elsa Blansert, and she had a YouTube channel called TheWaterwhispers. I wanted to know who she was and what was she about, so I played some of her videos, and I learned that she uses her videos to relax people with this thing called a.s.m.r. And let me play you a little bit of Elsa's video.
Hi everybody, this is TheWaterwhispers Elsa, and this is going to be a video about everything and nothing. I just wanted to give you guys an update about the International a.s.m.r. Day and about a couple of people in the Whisper community, and I also wanted to give you an update on which requests I still have, and I also wanted to play a little bit with water because this was requested by Jane Morris, and so yeah.
So that's how I got into a.s.m.r.